Hi, Kabita. This is Tal. Thank you for being here with me today and do this interview. The general election is coming up very soon here at the beginning of February 2022, within 2 weeks. So I'd love to jump on here and have a chat with you about your position and give anyone that's interested in running for this role just a snapshot of what it looks like and what they could expect to be doing in the role. So thanks for being here with me.
Hi, my name is Kabita and I am the VP for Student Life for the Graduate Students Association or the GSA.
Thank you. And how are you feeling now as we are already in January 2022? I know that the past 2 years has come by in a flash with COVID that happened, with you joining right at the time when COVID started. So how are you feeling now that we're already in 2022?
It feels weird. It feels like it's moving really fast, and some days feel a bit slow as well, but I think it's faster rather than slower. And I just feel like, oh, you just start, and then it was summer when we started, and then now it's like winter, and you just go, oh, it's January, it will be April soon, and then you'll just be done. It just feels like time is moving a little bit way too fast.
Especially when I feel when we're doing this online, we didn't really get a lot of in-person interactions with graduate students so far. Yeah, how was the past 8 months being the VP student life for you? Is it drastically different from your previous role as the VP Finance and Service?
It has been quite fun, to be honest. I have enjoyed it. I think both of the roles had their own perks. Like, for example, with finance, I had mostly roles around finances, so a lot of numbers, and it was very much inward focused, I would say, given that finances are usually internal, except for when I present it to the students. And with this one, it's very much outward focused, like with orientations, department orientation, and XX meet and greets, and all the fun events I get to plan for students. It's very much outward focused, so I get to talk to more students and really get to know the students better, and I really enjoyed that part. So I feel like in that sense it's a little bit different in that you get to expose yourself more, and it's a little bit bittersweet given that if it was in person I'd probably have gotten to chat and meet with a lot more students than I'm getting to right now.
Yeah. And so, what are the main responsibilities of this role? I know that you have mentioned that you get to talk and interact with students a lot more in this role. So, yeah, what are the main responsibilities of the role?
So the first one is obviously events and events. I have 5 different subcommittees under me, which means that I get to plan a wide variety of events. Like, for example, have a mental health and wellness committee. So a lot of events around mental health, and a GSA square, gender and sexuality associated or related events, and then also NEES, so newcomer and for international students, and also there are events and community engagement. So really wide variety of events. And I have to say, while I talk about it, I have to give credit to people where it's due. So it's mostly the chairs and vice chairs and the committee members that do all these hard works. I just give them the support, and yeah, they are the backbones of those committees. But it's really fun getting to help them with all of these events and then hearing their ideas and telling them, okay, this is how we can be supported, like how we can plan this event and make it a success. So I think that's really exciting and rewarding. And another component is mental health. So under my portfolio, I also sit on various mental health committees on campus, which means that you get to, there's a bit of perk, I would say. Like maybe a little bit challenging is that you have a lot of campus mental health committees. So every month you have to attend so many different committees, but also it comes with the perk that people listen to you. So I know that with that power, I also have the responsibility that I represent those students who like find out the gaps that we have in our campus mental health strategies and make sure that I'm representing the voice of those students who cannot represent it themselves. So I feel like I'm always aware that there's the challenges, but also I think the reward is when you actually see that people on campus, they are so receptive and they recognize there are some gaps and they're so willing to work with you and make sure that we are bridging those gaps. So knowing that everybody is open-minded and willing to make those changes, I think that's perhaps the most rewarding part for me. Oh, and also getting to meet a lot of students.
Yeah, so as you had mentioned, like you are in charge of many events, but also there's a large focus on mental health as well. Is that just amazing? I think, yeah, like mental health is so important for especially graduate students who are having a very workload to balance their personal life and also school life and other things as well. Yeah, I think mental health for sure a great focus for graduate students. So What do you find the most challenging in this role so far?
Sometimes it is time. For example, it's really hard to make sure that you have time for your school side of things because we're grad students before we are at the GSA. And just knowing that you have to find that balance, you have to make sure that your school side is not compromised, and then also make sure that you are listening to the students and hearing them out and making sure that you have enough time in there, for example, to review the documents that you need, to attend the meetings, to make sure that you are giving it your full. Sometimes it can be really hard, I would probably say, but it's only a couple of times, I think. So there are some days like around orientation week or something where you barely have time to like breathe, and COVID doesn't make it easier because when it's online, you just go back to back in like your computer desk, and at least with in person you can walk around and talk to people, so it doesn't feel so much like you're just confined. So I think sometimes that part could be a bit challenging, and I really hope that next year when the new execs come in, they don't have to do it completely online, so that they can actually walk around and they don't feel like it's a little bit too much of Zoom fatigue.
Yeah. And what do you find most rewarding?
I think it's those very little moments where, say, for example, you are in orientation week, and this year, because COVID was a little bit better at the time, I had some in-person orientations and also online, but like hearing students like type in the chat box saying that they really enjoyed it, or a little thank you email sometimes you get, and random people reach out to you and then they notice things. Like one example that happened to me yesterday was a student reached out to me about land acknowledgement, personalized one, and mentioned that last year in the GRC I had given that, and how they are also an international student, and seeing another international student give that personalized land acknowledgement that impacted them, and they wanted to chat about it and see if I can share some tips. And I think those little things mean a lot. It's just wow, because you don't see or you don't realize that people notice those things, and seeing that people notice what you do, people notice the effort you put in and everything, I think those are very rewarding.
Yeah. And so, how do you measure the impact that this role has had on graduates?
That's a little bit a tough one because some things you can measure by success by numbers. Like, for example, with events, it's easy, right? Like how many people came in there, and then how did they enjoy the events? Did they stay the whole time? And how did they respond to your surveys? Those are very easy measure of success for events. But then for other things, I think sometimes it's not black and white, like with some, say, for example, with mental health or anything. It could take quite some time for us to make those changes at university setting. So it's not immediate, like your reward is not immediate. In those cases, I would probably measure it by the kind of messages you get from back from students. So if they send you messages saying that they appreciate what you're doing, or they recognize it, or they send that little notes of thank yous and appreciation, I think those would perhaps be my measure of success in the role.
Yeah. And what skills or what experience do you think are important for the role?
I don't think there's like any requirements per se, because when I started at the GSA, I didn't know a lot of things, but I can definitely say that if you're a very outgoing person and you really enjoy talking to other people, then you might really enjoy this role and it might be the one for you. But I would also say don't worry too much about what skills you have, what skills you don't have, because you keep learning along the way. And it's, trust me when I say this, you really enjoy the process. And before you wait, you just go like, oh, how come that I started in 2020 and it's already 2022? It's almost like over 1.5 years already. And then you realize how many skills you have learned. It's like you count on your fingers, and it's your fingers cannot keep up with that. Yeah, I don't think you need a lot of skills, but sometimes you need to just be prepared that sometimes there are some days when it might take a lot more time, or you might be very busy on orientation weeks.
Yeah, and what does a week look like for this role? I guess like during a normal week, not orientation or not at a time that's really busy for the role.
I think I spend a small chunk of my time making sure that all the committees are taken care of. So if they have any questions or anything, if they need any help, I make sure to reach out to them and offer that. And that's one part. Another part is there's always, every week you have either some campus mental health committee meetings, international student meeting, one of them. So you spend quite some time in those meetings, and internal board meetings, and making sure that everything's happening, and also a bit with emails. And sometimes you students who want to talk to you. So I would say that it's a bit of all of those little things.
So for the past year, are there any big highlights or achievements for this role that you like to share? Any moments that you feel that you're really proud of that or very memorable for you?
For me, one big goal that I had personally, it's a bit internal, but it was for the SIG committee. So all those 5 committees are collectively called SIG committee. And I really wanted to make sure that we have some few events that are collaboration between committees within the SIG committee or also with other committees that we have internally, and make sure that those collaborations stay in place and make everything very streamlined in the process that's happening. And I feel like I have been able to do that because I keep getting texts from like our chairs and vice chairs that they really enjoy working with me, and hearing those things from them, it feels like, oh, I probably have been successful. So that feels like a huge achievement for me. Another one is on campus mental health strategy. We're actually working right now to doing some surveys that is specifically focused towards some group of students who are minorities, like for example BIPOC folks, indigenous folks, international students, some LGBTQ folks, older grad students. Whatever we have right now, it's very general. They might not get covered in there, so we're really working to make sure that we hear their voices through surveys or through focus groups, and then we work towards bridging those gaps on mental health. Like I said before, with that it's really hard to measure success, but I think the fact that that conversation is starting to happen anyways, that feels like a huge success to me.
Oh, that's great to hear what's happening with the mental health strategy. I know this role, as you have described, can be heavy at times. So, what kind of support that you receive from within the GSA team?
Oh, the staff, they have been incredible in this. I probably say staff are the backbone of the entire GSA because of how much work they do. And for me, 3 main people stand out right away. One is in terms of email, we have Rachel. She does all these administrative works for us. She helps us with our calendars and everything. So she has been a lifesaver. And in terms of events, I would say Tao yourself and Shannon. So Shannon is our events coordinator, and I work very closely with Tao and Shannon. We have weekly meetings, and anytime I struggle with any questions, they always help me with that. So those 3 are the huge backbone. But besides that, we also have, for example, all the stuff in general. You need any help with administrative work, you need help with HR, you need help with a finance question, or any help in general, you always have someone that you can go to. So I would say that nothing would have been possible without the staff team.
That's awesome. And thanks for sharing that. I know that next year might be completely different from this year because we are hopefully transitioning back to in-person events. So from that expectation or assumption, can you share what you think would be the main focuses for the role in the next year?
For sure. I feel like we might actually have either hybrid or in-person orientation for next year, which means that it takes a lot more time and a lot of energy in terms of planning for orientation week. That will be a very big one. So perhaps like packed sandwiches or individually packed lunch. So that would be a big piece in there. So yeah, orientation in general, I think will be a huge one for whoever takes this role. And besides that, continuing with the conversations happening around mental health, that could be also a big one. And yeah, I feel like I might have gotten lucky in that some of the meetings, they are online, so you can do a little bit more of a work-life balance. But I think it might be really hard, especially if you are at Foothills, then it might be hard for you to commute to the main campus for the meeting. So that might be another one. But mainly I would say within events, within SIG committee, making sure that all of these events are happening smoothly. And also you have the option for both hybrid as well as in-person events. That might be a big one for this role. And then yeah, orientation would be a big one, mental health committees, and then the SIG committee, and making sure that the events are happening smoothly. But biggest one to look for perhaps would be some changes happening and conversations around mental health and orientation.
Thank you. And can you share a bit of advice if someone is interested in running for the VP Student Life position? What would you recommend, or is there any tips or tricks or any things that you want to recommend them to do?
Okay, I am going to recommend exactly what I was recommended. So I don't know if a lot of the students know, but Mina was the one who was VP Student Life first and then Finance and Services. I did the exact opposite, but we had conversation around both of the roles, and he told me that oh, it's okay. People think that you need to have some prior experience with this role and you need to like know all these things, but you really don't need to know. All you need to have is good intention and the intention of doing like, I'll come to this role and I'll make sure that I'll leave it a better place than what it was. And I will also make sure that I do everything I can to help grad students. So as long as you come in with the intention of helping grad students, because that's what we're here for, and leaving this role or all the things on your portfolio a little bit better than what it was, as long as you do that or have that intention, I don't think you have to worry about anything else, because that's the intention that really drives you when sometimes things are really hard and days are very long. And I think that's the only thing you really need for this role.
And how do you recommend someone that are interested in position to balance their graduate student workload and also this role of the GSA workload?
Okay, that's a tough one. I think one thing to keep in mind would be sometimes we do this in the GSA or the execs. We make some of the days our school days where we basically don't take a lot of meetings unless we really have to, and we block some of the time hours. For example, with me, I do a lot of dry labs, so I don't have to worry about that part a little. But if you have to go to the lab, then for your experiment, make sure you block off like a 3 to 4 hours of time at a time on certain days, so that people know that they cannot schedule any meetings at that time. So that could be a way for you to have some time for your school side. And next thing is, we just don't realize that we would get so tired at the end of the day, and we just feel like you have to keep working, and just give yourself that little lunch break where you are aware. It's very much doable to just turn off your camera or just and have your lunch right there, but try not to do that. I did that a lot and I had really bad burnouts a couple of times. So I had to, like, I basically now block off like a couple of 10 minutes in my calendar where I just go out or do something, and that helps a lot too. So just try to make sure that you have a little bit of time for yourself, because that will really help you from being overburned out.
And the information about your role, I think the job description is posted on the GSA website on the elections webpage. So I think anyone, if they're interested, they could read that job description and also chat with you or send you an email to learn more about the role. Yeah, and I think that's the end of the interview. What else you'd like to share with the students at this point?
Yeah, just that if you have any questions about this role, about anything at all, please feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to chat with you about it. And it might feel a bit intimidating at the beginning, but don't worry about it. If you have any questions, just remember no question is silly. So just make sure you reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.